Hey guys, what's up? It's Jay Sensational here, and coming to you guys again with another deck guide on a deck that I'm pretty sure that you're all pretty familiar with if you've been playing the game for the past 2 months. And what I'm kind of excited for with this video in particular is that this deck list could be one of the most timeless videos, or at least for the deck itself, because even after the nerf, Go Hard is still a really, really powerful deck, and it doesn't seem to have any doesn't seem to have any changes planned for it in the future, and it has very strong matchups across the meta and the last meta and possibly the next meta. And so this deck might always be one that lingers around in the background, even if sometimes it's not as played as hot of a play rate as it should be. This video should hopefully cover or be a little more in depth rather than going through a very basic guide, because maybe most of you already know how to play this deck or have seen it a lot, and I don't want to go over too many of the basic details, but focus more on maybe the higher level tips or insights that I have after I've played it for quite a while. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So another reason why this deck list has what I think to be a very resilient structure is that it's the core of the deck hasn't really changed, even with the new expansion. A lot of the old cards from the old list are still there. We have our draw package with like Pool Shark, Fortune Croaker, Zap, and Glimpse. And, we have our basic 3 Go Hards, the Salvages, and some control tools thrown around. Now, the basic core of the structure could change. I know a lot of these cards have been talked about as maybe having a very high power level, like Zap being able to really reliably tutor a card, for example, or Fortune Croaker just having a very ridiculous effect for its cost. So these cards might change, maybe, but I'm not sure if there's any plans for that. But one of the new cards that has been added to this deck is Wiggly Burble Fish, and this has seen quite a lot of play recently in the past weeks, mostly in the PNZ Bilgewater elusive decks, but I think that at least a 2 of has found its place into Go Hard. Because having like a 3 damage chip elusive that can cost 0 is really effective. And what this deck really also wants is having very cheap units to play to refill their board, so that after they play their pack your bags, they can go in for really clean open attack. So Burble Fish, sorry, I'm adding extra burbly into there, but Burble Fish kind of fits into what the deck wants to do pretty well. And of course, the 1 mana spells that it generates can also be pretty useful to Go Hard itself. Now, the places where the deck is really flexible in is the other Shadow Isles removal tools, and these can be swapped around in various quantities depending on the meta. These being the 2 of Withering Wails, the 1 of Vengeance, and the 1 of Ruination, and the 1 of Commander Ledros. In earlier metas, you might have seen like a 2 of Ledros, a 2 of Ruination perhaps, or maybe even like a 3 of Whales. And so these card quantities can be, shifted around depending on the meta that you're facing to fit it a little bit better. Some decks have thrown in like Atrocity into it with their 2 Commander Ledros as a kind of an alternative finisher, but I haven't seen the deck needing that capacity because this deck is still relatively pretty fast, and most games will end before you actually have the chance to play Commander Ledros. But of course, the basics core of the deck haven't really changed much. The addition of Burblefish is good for this archetype, and we can jump a little bit more into some of the basic outlines and strategies that the deck wants to go into. So very briefly, we're going to touch over the playstyle and win conditions from a very high level, because I think that a lot of you have seen Go Hard played by streamers, by YouTube creators, or just have by yourself. It's been around for quite a long while and was played a lot last meta, so this could still be fresh in your head. But just to go over some of the basic structures of what the deck wants to do, I'll kind of split it into like a early game versus like a late game finisher style. So for Go Hard, they have a pretty aggressive curve. You know, they have the 1-2 drop, especially with Elise coming down on 2, can generate some really good pressure against the opponent if they really lack that 2 drop fearsome blocker. And apart from our early aggression, we have some pretty good ping tools to kind of control your opponent's side of the board during these early turns. If they play like a 1 or 2 drop, you can set up like a go hard ping or with like a deckhand keg to do a 2 damage ping and combine with like Elise's spider that also like pings the target for 1 damage. You can clear a lot of early board from your opponents very cheaply and very efficiently, while also developing your own board. Once we hit turn 4, we can either drop like a Twisted Fate or a Zap Sprayfin to start tutoring or drawing cards, and so we can transition into our pack your bags or our finisher. So once we have like a nice setup with our board, we're controlling the enemy's units with like go hards, or even as we go into the mid games, we have like withering whales with kegs that can really devastate your opponent's board. We can start drawing with glimpses and salvages, dealing 2 extra damage with Doom Beast, and then finally getting to your pack your bags. And when you have your pack your bags, you also have that cheap board state that you develop turn after turn with like 1 or 2 drops. But because pack your bags takes 1 action, and then your opponent can only play 1 action in response to your pack your bags, you get a pretty wide board swing with your board. And even if you're chipping in like 5-6 damage with your board after pack your bags, that can be really devastating because you do have some finishers in the form of Ledros, some elusives like Wiggly, and the Doom Beast to kind of push you over the top. Of course, in this deck, we can also play towards a very aggressive Twisted Fate level up that not only it starts to like red card your opponent's board down, deal 1 damage to their Nexus each turn, but also to cycle through your deck at a rapid pace so that you can accelerate your own game plan of playing out more and more go hards. I'm also going to quickly touch up on the mulligan because I think that for less experienced go hard players, this can be a little bit of a confusing discussion. I think that it's very easy to look at some cards and think, of course, I'm going to keep these pretty much in every matchup. But then when you get to other cards, it's like, okay, are these keeps? And then some cards should just be like never keeps, right? So I think it's pretty clear that some always keeps are your 1-2 curves. In this case, it's Jagged Butcher and Elise. I think Twisted Fate is usually always a good keep because it's just like a 4 mana draw card and threaten your win condition type of deal. I think it's always fine to keep at least 1 go hard, especially in this meta where there's a lot of 1 drops like Zoe and Teemo, or just pairing it with like a Dreadweight deckhand can be really strong in controlling the early game. For our conditional keeps, we have I'll start off with Dreadway Deckhand first. I think this is a fine keep if you have a go hard in hand, because you typically don't really want to be playing Dreadway Deckhand on 2. It's kind of a weak tempo compared to Elise. And if you can't use your keg properly, the opponent just gets, to kill your keg for free, and you don't really get the go hard value out of it. So I think it's fine to keep Dreadway Deckhand so long as you have a go hard in your mulligan as well. Fortune Croaker kind of follows a similar story. You never really want to be tempoing out this card on 2. I think it's fine if you are facing an aggressive deck and you do have a 1 drop. So if you do have Jagged Butcher against an aggressive deck, Fortune Croaker is a fine keep. I think even in a slower matchup, you don't really want this 1 into Fortune Croaker curve, and you'd rather find your card like Elise. Zap Sprayfin, very good card, helps you tutor your go hard to progress, or your glimpse to progress your game plan forward. But if you don't really have an early curve, you do want to be mulliganing a little bit more aggressively, because if you can get in like 3 to 5 chip damage in the first 2 turns, that can really set the tone later on in the game when you're pressuring down the opponent with a Pack Your Bags or Doom Beasts. Finally, going on to the never keeps. The obvious parts are the very high costed cards like Vengeance, Ruination, Ledros. Wiggly is a terrible keep because you're actually not playing that many spells or in a very fast rate. You'll probably play 6 spells by the time you play pack your bags. And so that's a good guideline to think about when Wiggly Burbly Fish is going to cost 0. Now, in like elusive matchup, it could be like a good blocker sometimes, but it's just a little bit weak if you don't play it for 0 mana. Salvage, kind of for a similar reason, it's very expensive. You don't really want to be spending 4 mana in the early turns to really do nothing because you do want to be applying pressure to your opponent early on. Salvage is kind of like a bait keep, especially if you see like Twisted Fate in your hand and you think, oh, it's salvage, I can like turbo level at my Twisted Fate. That's usually never really the right play. And for the same reason, Pool Shark, while I didn't include it in this image, should go under the never keep pile because obviously, again, there are better cards for it. Pool Shark's effect also is a lot more valuable if you have a Twisted Fate on board. And, if you draw into it during your first few turns, you can decide if you want to play it or not depending on how your hand looks out. So that's a very basic overview of the cards you should think about during the mulligan. Finally, I think that this is where I want to go a little bit more in depth into some of the common mistakes or misplays that I think are very easy to make when playing a deck like Go Hard. And I think that if you can think about this a little bit more in depth as you're playing this deck, then I think that you'll be able to pilot the deck at a much higher level. And these are kind of some things that I've learned throughout playing this deck a lot in some of these master games that I'll also show you later. The first very key mistake is kind of not getting your glimpse value. And what I mean by that is either like taking a very proactive glimpse when your opponent can often have a response, whether that be like a mystic shot or a single combat, and just not getting your card draw. Card draw is probably the most important thing to this deck, and that's why you see a lot of it with like glimpses, salvages, and zaps. That it's very, very critical that when you cast Glimpse Beyond, you're either getting some card draw out of it or you use it when you kind of have to, like if they're threatening like a Fiora level up with a single combat, and then you have to glimpse, and if they spend 2 single combats, maybe you don't feel so bad about it type of thing. But you should always focus on getting glimpse beyonds when it's very safe to do so. And so at times I might cast Glimpse Beyond when my opponent's at 0 mana, for example, because I know they have no way to stop it. And I will sometimes just not cast it when my opponent's at 2 mana, for example, because of the threat that they can deny my glimpse. And the second key thing is that you're not really playing reactively. I think another very common misconception about Go Hard as a deck is while your first few turns can be very aggressive, you're often the deck that opponents need to race down because the longer the game goes on, the closer you get to your pack your bags, and when you have your pack your bags, the opponent is kind of locked out, right? Because if they develop into it, they get punished, but if they don't develop into it, they kind of get punished in the same way. A really good way to think about how to play reactively is to take a lot of soft passes, whether that be setting up really aggressive open attacks, and so that you pass priority to your opponent and see what they do, or use go hards to like just soft pass for 1 mana. And that's also another thing that this deck does really good that a lot of other control decks really lack, is their ability to really soft pass very cheaply. And in addition, soft passing with Go Hard also progresses your own game plan. So this is a very strong concept that Go Hard can really capitalize on. If you want a little bit more information on how exactly you should think about while playing a control deck, I have released a video on that earlier this week, and I'll include a link to the description if you guys haven't checked it out yet. The third thing here is not prioritizing TF blue card. And this kind of falls under the same reasoning as when you're not getting glimpse value, because draw is so important to your deck. Not only does the blue card give you a tune, which allows you to play really mana efficiently, drawing through your deck is also how you want to win the game. I think it's very easy to be baited into like a red or gold card when you don't necessarily need it. For example, if you have like an opponent's board with like a 1/1, a 2/1, you're thinking, oh, this is a good red card because it's going to clear a lot of their board, and I can, that's a really good tempo play. And while that is true, you have to remember that your deck has Go Hard, which are 1 mana pings, or you can set up like a Withering Whale, which doesn't have the option to draw you a card instead of using your Twisted Fate as like a 4 mana whale, for example. Now, this red cards and gold cards can obviously be used, or should be used rather, more commonly in an aggressive setup. So, for example, against like discard aggro, before they play their crowd favorite, you want to thin out their board of like 1 health units. This is a very appropriate place to play a TF red card. But you should always pick blue card unless you really, really need to. And that's kind of another key mistake that I think a lot of players also get kind of baited into making. Finally, the last tip I want to leave you guys with is the fact that I think a lot of players are kind of tunnel visioned into the go hard strategy. Now, you do want to be progressing your go hard game plan as fast as you can in order to get to your pack your bags, because the earlier you get to pack your bags, the less chance your opponent can either like cheese you out somehow or just play a lot of big units that pack your bags doesn't really kill. But I think that a lot of players will like instantly play go hard as soon as they draw them, and think that the faster that they play each go hard, then like they're gonna win because they played their go hard like a turn sooner, for example. And I think that's a really poor misconception, because in reality, our deck has very little interaction with our opponent. Apart from either if you're running a lot of Withering Whales, Go Hard is really your only other source of removal. Unless you're trading down your board really aggressively, Go Hard kind of needs to be saved for when it really needs to be used. So if your opponent plays like a 2/3, for example, maybe we don't use that Go Hard if we know that our opponent is playing other 1 or 2 health units, in which that we can use Go Hard to effectively kill a unit rather than just pinging a unit for 1 health. The second kind of drawback to playing Go Hards really aggressively and really quickly is that if we play too many Go Hards too quickly, then we might be clogging a lot of our top decks with Go Hards, and that can kind of be detrimental in some case, because we don't in reality, we don't want to be top decking a Go Hard every turn. We need our other cards in order to progress our game plan, and we need our draw cards to really efficiently cycle through our deck. And that's also why another reason that we shouldn't necessarily just play spam Go Hards as we get them. Because one, our deck actually lacks a lot of removal compared to like a deck like Ezreal Draven, and two, we don't want to be top decking Go Hards until like later in the game when it's kind of like the last thing we can do. So these are some very common mistakes and misplays that I think more inexperienced players will have. So we're coming up to the end of the deck guide portion of this video. Up next, I will have 2 really cool games that I pulled from my Fight Nights tournament run that I think were played pretty well, I would want to say, with Go Hard, and I'll be sure to go into my in-depth explanation turn by turn of what exactly I'm trying to set up and what am I doing with this deck. I hope you guys have enjoyed the guide so far, and I want you guys to be really excited for the next video, because not only is this video like a good guide for Go Hard as a deck, I will be posting my own version of Go Hard that features Fizz TF with Go Hard, with Encroaching and Stalking Shadows, with Fading Memories, and it's completely sick. But I think that in order to get to that video, we need to establish a basis of knowing exactly how to play Go Hard. So 2 things in this video. One, I hope you guys learn something new about Go Hard. and hope you guys are excited to see my version of Go Hard, because I have a lot of footage that I would love to show a lot of games about, and I hope that you guys are excited. So without further ado, I will jump into the 2 games I have for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed so far. Please leave a like or subscribe if you did, and I'll catch you guys next time. I'm recording this post. This isn't gonna be live, but the next video will be. That's kind of because I kind of messed up my stream, and so I actually had myself muted for the whole game against this matchup. So sorry for that, but the next game will be live commentary, and I think that'll be a lot more interesting because it's at the moment of what's exactly going on, right? With this deck, you always want at least on 2. Go hard zap. It's a good setup in order to get your cycle going. This matchup, I think, it's tough. I think it's favored slightly for Go Hard, but it's tough. What you want to be doing is kind of like playing around the Ruination spells with your pack. You don't want to get to a state where you're threatening the pack with the board, but then they can ruinate after your pack. Triple Elise is kind of funny. Not very good though, or anything like that. But being able to push with Elise on 2 is pretty good. I can also find their deck lists, or I have access to their deck list if you do want to see and just think along what's going on. If you want, you know what? I will link the spreadsheet for Fight Nights that has all the deck lists at the bottom of this video. And if you're interested, you can just pull up the opponent's deck guide during these games and think along with me if if that's kind of your style. But moving forward, this is his Catalyst turn. If he wants to take it, we did deal 3 damage to him already, so he's getting full value pretty much. And obviously, we're on a pretty awkward hand here. We can't really do anything. The best play we could possibly make is if he plays a minion and then we go hard and Doom Beast. Because he doesn't, we don't really have an option to do here. And I don't think we're tempo Doom Beasting. This is actually matched up where like damage actually matters. I know they have like a lot of heal cards like Withering Whales, Vile Feasts, Catalysts. In this deck even runs 2 Grasps, 2 Whales, so they have a lot of healing. But their heal comes at a very high price, right? And they're usually paying 5 mana to heal 3. And so it really matters how much damage we're pushing. You see a whale here, which is a little bit expected. Can't really do anything. We could take a glimpse here, but you have like a Vile Feast to counter us. So we don't really want to be risking that. And, if he plays something, we can go hard zap. The only issue is if he plays nothing, sometimes we'd like to glimpse into zap just to, be more mana efficient and get the attune value. But at the end of the day, if nothing happens, we can just play zap out onto this board. I guess I think about this glimpse a little bit. It's a risk to take. If he has the Vile Feast, we get punished for it. I don't think there's a reason to fall into that risk. It's better to get a little bit more information if, at a later turn, if he doesn't use Vile Feast when he maybe should have. Now, this is a debatable play. I think I end up casting one of these Crawling Sensations before I play my Zap. And that's kind of questionable. You don't want to really be drawing into Elise's as the game goes on. And so it's kind of a weird choice here. I could also go for like a Elise level up in this case, but I mean, it would definitely go off because he's at 2 mana and he can only kill 1 with the Vile Feast, right? But again, I don't want to be drawing into like 2 Elises later on in the game. You want to be drawing into like your draw cycles, your engines, and Elises don't really do that for that. And so developing one of these concentrations just for a little bit of board after you sing like a whale seems okay. Obviously, this board is very susceptible to Avalanche. So if he open Avalanches here, at least we can redevelop with another Elise. And that's kind of another reason to keep one of these Elises, because if he wipes the board, Elise is one of our best redevelopment tools, right? So he does. I think he Avalanches here and treat. Okay. So we still could have Avalanche, but we know that Anivia is coming down soon. just want to pass here, I think. There's no real point to develop onto this board when we can't play around Avalanche. I don't see a reason not to pass here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm most certainly sure that I pass. I wouldn't see anything else that I would want to do here. He's at 5 mana again. We can't take glimpses like these. And if he passes back, you know, we're okay. I think this is a weird matchup where we actually have to race down our opponent because their deck is like the latest game deck out there, right? If you give them too much time, they just play the Harrowings and get like a board full of Anivias, and it's really hard to come back from that because now they're board wiping you every turn. And of course, I think that our opponent can't really like take this open attack. I'm pushing 7, and that's really bad for him. Even if he like wails, I push 1 if he wails. So it's he would definitely avalanche if he has it. I think this is such a greedy like hole, but of course if he avalanche, I could just redevelop 2 or 3 minions, and he'd be kind of in the same board state. So I see a good reason on either side. Now, of course, I especially can't develop because not only does he have the threat of avalanche, he has the threat of ruination if I develop. So I think we've committed to this line. We didn't develop last turn. This is a pretty easy open attack. And again, if he wipes our board, now you have the Jagged Butcher as a 3/3 to redevelop. And so it seems fine. And if he uses his mana here, he can't play Anivia this turn, which doesn't really matter because then he plays Anivia on his attack turn, right? But it's kind of like the thoughts that go through my head. If I develop, I get baited into like a Ruination or another or an even better Avalanche. But if he uses it now, he can't play Anivia, but that doesn't really matter. It's just, something to think about. We know he did draw Anivia off of the on-treat because this deck only runs Anivia as their champions. And we had the read that because he floated that 5 mana last turn, he's a little bit flexible on removal. He could have like another whale, or even if he grasps the Elise, then he's not terribly unhappy. But he takes a 7, which is kind of surprising. Because it's really good for us. And like I mentioned again, we're trying to race down his side of the board a little bit. And so now that he's played Anivia, he's down to 3 mana. He's very limited in what he can do. So now I can play out to progress my game plan a little bit, because if I'm able to set up this pack with the next open attack I get, there's a good chance I can close out the game because I was able to push 7 damage here. And I have a Doom Beast in hand, which represents 2 extra damage. I think I end up zapping here. That's kind of why I go harded first, to kind of get that attune value. And also drawing a second go hard is pretty good. I think that was only the first go hard I played this game. So let's see if we end up playing our zap here, which I'm pretty sure we do. I did take up a lot of time during these turns because it was kind of complicated. And of course, this is a tournament matchup, so I was trying to take it a little bit more seriously. So hopefully you're not falling asleep out there. Go hard is fine. So this is 3 go hards, and then, of course, I have this glimpse. So if I draw into another go hard, I get a pack, right? Being at 5 mana, he doesn't really have any plays at 3 mana. Of course, if he wants like on treat again, he could. If he forces like a Vile Feast out of nowhere for no reason. Actually, we're starting Elise level up, which is kind of scary because we can challenge with these 1/1 spiders, right? And push with like our bigger units. So this actually might force him to do something, and because he's at 3 mana, this is finally the glimpse I can take, right? Because he's showing this card, we know it's a fast speed spell, and it's most likely Vile Feast, right? That's kind of like the read you can get from your opponent playing or not playing cards as well. So we Vile Feast here, and finally, because he's at 1 mana, we finally have the safe glimpse that we wanted so badly this whole entire game. And of course, now we knew that he always had glimpse in his hand, so he can never take this glimpse beyond. Sorry, he always had this Vile Feast in hand, so he can never take this glimpse anytime before this moment. Of course, it could have glimpsed like a 2/2, but not only does this glimpse deny him the Vile Feast, he also doesn't get 1 heal off of it, and that's really good. Let's see. I can bank 3 to be mana efficient. This Jagged Butcher kind of is only a 3/3 for this turn, but I don't think it matters too much. Again, we have 2 Go Hards, and the Zap actually can tutor us the 4th Go Hard that we need to pack his bags. And if we get to our pack your bags, this board's looking very scary, right? He only has Anivia, and we represent a board that's pretty wide, 8 damage. Of course, this Anivia wipes out our spiders. If he kills our Elise, we can at least replay Elise again. So we're not in a terrible state here. So he takes the open attack, which is fine. So this moment's pretty critical, right? Why am I blocking with the Elise? So not only does this Elise block let me replay out my Elise, so I'm basically healing my Elise 2 health for 2 mana, but I also get to kill Anivia this turn with double Go Hard in hand. And what this does is this baits him into playing Rekindler this turn. Because he's at exactly 7 mana, I'm setting up this kill on Anivia to bait him into playing Rekindler. Because if he uses all his mana this turn, I can set up my board for an open attack, and he can't do anything about it because now he's forced to play like he can't Ruination anymore. So this is kind of the moment, right? Because I'm setting up, not only am I setting up this pack your bags, I'm also setting up this open attack if he plays exactly Rekindler. And this is exactly what I'm trying to hope for, or to get him to do, because I set up this perfect example, right? And if he plays Rekindler, I get to develop my board wide again. I get to draw pack bags, and not only does he have to stop my board, he also has to stop enough so that he doesn't die to pack bags and this Doom Beast in hand. So I have 7 reach in hand, and I only need to deal 4 damage. I have 6 with elusives, and I have this Elise that I'm going to play down. Drawing this Go Hard is absolutely nuts as well, because this is the pack bags. And so this turn's pretty obvious. I play Elise, I play Go Hard on the egg, and then I open into an open attack. I probably go a little bit wider as well, because we've seen 1 whale. This deck only did run 2 whales, so there's no real reason to play around the 2nd whale. If he does, I'd be in a really bad spot. So we can't really expect to play around this whale. And of course, because our Elise died because we shoved it in front of the attacking Anivia, we gotta replay it out again here. And Elise, generates 2 bodies that he actually needs to block. So I think I just play an Elise and Jagged Butcher this turn. Seems like the best play to make. Just go completely wide and have a 6-unit board attacking. Do I actually play Pool Shark here? Interesting. I'm not sure why I played Pool Shark here. Jagged Butcher is obviously 1 extra damage, right? I think the reasoning is I can only have 2 land units, and so he'd block both of them, so it really made no difference in terms of how much damage it's going to face. This is obvious open attack. This is the open attack I'm setting up for, and these are the open attacks you should try to set up for. He's at 9 mana now, because he didn't remove our board last turn where we set ourselves up into this open attack. Very crucially, we killed Anivia in order to bait him into playing Rekindler. And if he doesn't stop, we're pushing what, 7, and we have 7 reach in hand, even 8 with a keg, right? So he needs to stop 7, 8 plus 8, 15. He needs to stop 2 of these, or he needs to stop 3 units. Otherwise, we have exact lethal. And if he has no Vile Feast right here to kill this 2/1, then we know we win, right? Because he would have used it to prevent the 2 damage. And so this is pretty sweet game, right? We've set up this board state where he didn't remove it on the turn that he needed to, and so he swung into an open attack. And now, because we've pushed so much damage, we have our reach in the deck with Pack Your Bags and Doom Beasts. With this Doom Beast Keg Pack Your Bag, that's exactly 8 damage. And because we know he didn't have another Vile Feast in hand, we were able to, set up exact lethal. If you want to think back on that glimpse, if we wanted to glimpse during the Withering Whale, just to like, you know, make use of a spider dying, he could have Vile Feast on stack, and not only would we deny our 2 card draw, he would have gotten that 1 crucial healing. Because I think if he actually was at 1 health higher this turn, there's a chance he might have won. Now we did have 2 Doom Beasts in hand, and so he'd have to draw into, you know, at least more than 1 point of heal. But you know, this game was set up to this exact point that I think I played this really well. And this is a pretty good showcase game on how to think about playing this deck as well. Making sure we have exactly 2 board spaces open for this keg, and we have the Doom Beast pack for the exactly. A very cool game. So theoretically, it doesn't really matter which list I queue up with. Yeah, I think this deck actually has at least a fighting chance. We get some really early pressure in if we draw Elise. Go hard for his Teemo. Chuck these away. Second go hard. He's attacking on 1, he can't just like chuck Teemo away. He is on 2 Elixirs of Irons and 3 Troll Chants, so I'll have to keep that in mind as we play the game out. This hand's actually not that great. I would have liked Elise because we're attacking on evens. Let's just hope he goes for like a turn 1 Teemo. He does not. We can... oh, thank god. So that pretty much saved our draw. He can play Ballistic Bot, which he does have, which makes us slightly annoying. Okay. This puts us in like double go hard range, but I'm not sure I'd want to do that. That just like bait for when he plays Teemo. Whale's pretty good too. He has a really good draw, huh? If we do this, we play into Mystic Shot. I think we're just gonna... we could actually double go hard this. He's always gonna play his Ignition, which gives us the time to play double go hard. I think he's actually this might actually bait him into not playing Ignition. So this could be interesting, because we want to be shuffling go hards into our deck as he's putting in tough caps. And if he doesn't have second Ballistic Bot here, he could be set back pretty hard. Here I got the proc on. He doesn't attack, which is somewhat interesting. I'm always gonna blue card next turn, so... second wave. Do I attack? I think I attack. Saying this to 1 health is really good. Or he blocks Spider and takes 2. Oh. Brittle. So that's his only Brittle. I think. Yeah, so he's running 1 Brittle, that was his only Brittle. Kind of sucks, but we always do our play.
Blue as the serpentine.
Decent draw. That's scary. He actually has to think about like setting up to kill this. If he doesn't kill this, I could level TF. If he doesn't kill it this turn, I level TF. Wow. I'm not gonna show my double like salvage too early. I'm just gonna play Elise. Because I know he wants to like Mystic Shot or kill my Twisted Fate this turn, I get like a pretty safe dance around type of thing. He lets my TF level. Alright, that's huge. So we'll take what we can get. Double glimpse. And we level up TF next turn. We really need to start finding our go hards in order to start like reshuffling, because otherwise we're kind of in a bad spot. This matchup's already kind of difficult with so many puff caps in my deck. That's a good draw. We're looking for a second one, but we always level up TF first. Make sure this is leveling. I think we actually damaged TF now. Doesn't really matter. It being at 3 health is actually important. Wow, there's a go hard. So this clears his board too. This is huge. This is a really good start for us, I think. Ooh, what is that? Fuzz. I'm sorry for the stream quality, guys. Alright, we're gonna have to make do with something really fishy. So we'll do something like this. Hopefully this stops it. I'm sorry for the glare. So he's just trying to duck us out, but I mean, we already know that's what he's trying to do. Doesn't really matter what we damage. Actually, we can... So we play this to get a blue card, and then we can kill this Puff Cap Peddler, which could actually matter. And we need to be shuffling like go hards back into our deck now. We have Whale and 2 Doom Beasts for heal, so we're also looking pretty fine on that aspect. If he tries to protect this, I have like the, you know, I have the pack coming. Yeah, we don't really care. Well, we kind of care. He's putting in a lot of puff caps into our deck, so we're somewhat on a clock here. We need to be cognizant of. There's no point to sacrifice our board. We could lose if he like sneaks in a Teemo somehow, so I think we have to slow play this pack a little bit. We can't pack into like Doom Beast this turn. There's a Sejuani. I'm gonna wait until he attacks. No, I can't, can I? If he has the Teemo, he's just a better player than me. I think I have to pack here, because I need this board to stay alive for like an open attack. If he has Teemo, there's no Foundry, so maybe I don't die just yet. But I also need to start shuffling these packs back in deck. And now he actually can't play Teemo, because then obviously I red card everything. And if his Sejuani dies, then... Actually, if he plays Teemo, I play Keg and I kill both. So he has to attack and kill the TF before he can play Teemo. Yeah. I let this through and I take a few bits of damage. And we want to set up like an open attack. We need to find more go hards though. So that finds us go hard, which is good. Ooh. Procs. He's on 3 Mystic shots, but because he didn't kill TF, it's unlikely that... I don't know, I think he would have used Mystic Shot earlier, so this is kind of like a really tough call to make. Top deck. Nice. So he's rummaging, he's fishing. He is on 3 Mystic Shots, which makes this pretty likely to block, and I think this means that he did find one. Harsh Winds, wow, that's insane. Well, not like insane. Harsh Winds gets like 0 value in this matchup, but the sheer factor that he had to play it this turn makes it pretty good. Or rather meaning that he doesn't have like, you know, a way to remove it. And now I just kill his Sejuani. We actually need to be very careful of how many cards we're drawing. So like we Doom Beast into like Pool Shark. I really want more pack your bags. And I have a playable card this turn. That's not bad. This could find me like Absorb Soul or Pack. Shakedown. Shakedown's kind of interesting. He has the Fury of the North here. This is actually kind of scary if his Sejuani attacks again, huh? Can I afford to play Pool Shark? Do I die if I play Pool Shark here? It doesn't draw. It's so weird. I really need to be drawing my cards. Ooh, that's not good. 3 puff caps. Putting as much damage as we can up front. He has no Get Exciteds. He has no like... He has to stop this open attack, so that means we just need to survive until the open attack. We should have wailed before he struck. We can actually set up lethal with these deckhands. Yeah, so I think this is just lethal. And then it's just deckhand into Doom Beast now that we got the board space. I'm just gonna turn off my face cam after this game. I know the lighting in this room is just really bad, so I'm sorry about that. He has no healing. We have the read, he has no mystic shots. Wait, this actually sets off gold card, which I don't want. But I can replay. I have mana to replay everything. And I don't want to be drawing extra. So actually no, this is a mistake. No, wait. We actually can't kill him this turn. This is kind of frustrating. So that means we just have to take our second best play, which is just to drop Doom Beast here. We can actually find Go Hard here and heal 1 extra. I'm not sure if that's worth. Like, there's no way, now that Sejuani is dead, he can't stop this open attack, so I shouldn't risk anything.
Success is planting your mushroom trap. Nothing like the great outdoors.
Worst case, I just play Ledros and that ends the game. How many? 1. Nice. Right. Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna turn off my face cam. Sorry about the lighting and things like that.